Welcome to the Bucher and Friends podcast, co-starring 10-year NFL veteran and Super Bowl champion, Will Blackmon.
Manning from the end zone. He throws, and a deflect away, and it is picked off by Will Blackmon, the former Giant.
Tim Dwight watches it hit, bounces, picks it up at the 10, slips a defender, fumbles the football, it's up for grabs. It's covered in the end zone by Will Blackmon for a Green Bay touchdown.
And now, here is your host,
Let's send it over to Ric Bucher.
Ric Bucher.
Welcome to another episode of Bucher and Blackmon, subsidiary of Bucher and Friends on the United WeCast Network. I'm Ric Bucher. He's 10-year NFL vet and Super Bowl champ and father to the next Michael Phelps as far as butterfly is concerned. You can catch him on NFL Game Day Live Sundays on NFL Network and on Twitter at Will Blackmon. That's BLACKMO. And you can read my stuff on Bleacher Report and at Ric Bucher on Twitter. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. I should also mention, Will, people can find you at a UC Davis, Sacramento State beatdown game now and then as well. Was that your first live play-by-play analysis?
That was my very, very first live play-by-play. I had a fantastic partner, Bill Dolman. Basically, he said he will be my John Stockton in the booth, and I'll be the mailman.
Okay.
And it worked out. Yeah, it was cool. The game was supposed to be a UC Davis, but the air quality was, I think, if it's under 200 is where they measure it, then it's okay. And I believe the air quality at UC Davis was almost 400 about that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they ended up moving the game to Reno, University of Nevada in Reno. Very appreciative of that. But yeah, it was crazy. When I landed, it literally smelled like burnt brake pads.
Yeah.
And all the workers at the airports were wearing their masks in Sacramento. It was crazy out there.
It was just as bad in the Bay Area. In fact, I couldn't take my dog out because it was unhealthy. People in San Francisco were all wearing masks. And even down our way, it was really bad. It was 250. We, at one point here in the Bay Area, had the worst air quality in the world.
In the world, exactly.
In the world. And I've been to Beijing. You hack up a lung being in Beijing
really?
at the wrong time. Yes, it is really, really bad. And this was worse than that. By, I don't know, Saturday, I felt like I had smoked a pack of cigarettes. So we got out of town on Saturday. We drove down to Santa Cruz. We just kept driving south until we saw blue sky.
Breathe. Yeah. Well, it's funny you say a pack of cigarettes because I was at the Silver Legacy Hotel in the casino.
Oh,
there's lots of cigarettes down there.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, it was exciting. And yeah, unfortunately, man, I had a feeling it was going to be like that. UC Davis really just took it to him. I mean, over 600 yards of offense.
Yeah, it was over by halftime. It was like 35-10 or something like that.
Yeah, it was over by halftime. Yeah.
So as your first play-by-play, an exciting game gives you a lot to work with. I would imagine a beatdown, there's a lot of fill time. There's a lot of how do I keep people interested?
Well, I was fortunate because my partner was Bill Dolman. He's done everything from football to curling, cricket, you name it. He's done it all. And he was really, really awesome. I said, be my Steve Nash. He said, I'll be your John Stockton. He said, I'll set you up. You be the mailman, deliver. So it was a good time. We had tons of fun. And yeah, we filled it in with a lot of stuff. I've been playing football since I was 6, so I can talk football all day long. I have tons of stories and things to relate to. It was awesome. I had a lot of fun, and I definitely would do that again.
All right. So the soap opera that is the NFL, with your expertise, we could break down the X's and O's and where teams are and playoff race, et cetera, et cetera. But there's just so much craziness going on above and beyond that entertaining stuff. And I want to start with the report by Adam Schefter that the Browns were interested in interviewing Condoleezza Rice to be their next head coach. And John Dorsey came out with a statement very carefully complimenting and appreciating that Condi is a Browns fan, but that there was no plan to do that. And we know Schefter, he doesn't report stuff that's not on the mark. Belief is that he got that from Jimmy Haslam or somebody close to him, the owner, and that there was some truth to it at some point. So I guess I start there, Will. When you heard this, what was your first thought?
I thought it was a joke. That's all I thought. I'm like, there's no way that John Dorsey would put something like that out. Yeah, it's it's just funny. I talked to somebody in there and they sent me an emoji of a face slap and a I don't know emoji. I don't know what's going on. So it was funny. But
Right.
I think if anything, maybe she would be brought in to evaluate the next head coach. I could see that.
Yeah, I guess. And look, throughout sports, I know that not only do great teams talk to other great teams and the people who run great teams in a variety of sports, like the Patriots and the Spurs have exchanged notes. I know that for a fact. And that happens throughout sports. And people are now going outside of sports to find people in other pursuits, in other disciplines who can maybe teach them a thing or two. I'll never forget Eric Spoelstra coaching the Miami Heat. He knows that I surf. And he was asking me about Laird Hamilton's breathing exercises and lung capacity expansion because he was interested. He was interested in applying it for the Miami Heat. So if you see, your favorite Miami Heat players, if you see video of them on the bottom of the ocean carrying rocks from one place to the next, don't blame me. Spo got that from Laird Hamilton. Nonetheless,
there's videos of Phil Jackson doing breathing techniques in yoga with the Bulls.
Similar thing where people trying to bring in things from disciplines from other places. So I get that. But this one more time, just in the way that it came out, it tells me that if you can blame Hugh Jackson if you want, you can blame Hard Knocks, you can blame whoever you want. It always starts at the top. And the fact that the Browns, there's nothing wrong with Jimmy Haslam wanting to hire Condoleezza Rice or have her as part of the organization. It's way wrong when your GM gets caught not knowing what the hell you're doing or that there's conversations going on that he's not privy to when it comes to the structure of your team. That is the number one sign of an organization that is going to continue to shoot itself in the foot.
You're so annoyed.
I am. You know why? Because I've had the opportunity to work with teams. I have a media training company on the side, and I've had the opportunity to talk to teams from top to bottom about how you stay on what is a healthy organization. And some of it is your relationship with the media, having a healthy relationship with the media. But in order to have a healthy relationship with the media, everybody has to be on the same page. You can't be sending out different signals. You create questions in the minds of the people that cover you, and you make your own people look bad when they don't know what's going on. And clearly, Dorsey didn't know. There was legitimacy to this report. To what degree?
Because it
who
came
knows?
From Schefter. That's why.
Well, but even the denial was careful. Dorsey wasn't just shooting it down and kicking it out the door. He made sure that he was very respectful and even kind of left the door open for Rice to still be part of the organization. But at the same time, had to look, this sounds crazy. We're gonna interview Condoleezza Rice to be our next head coach. That just like you did. The first thing you did was laugh. I did too. I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. No matter how much respect I have for Rice, you're not bringing somebody in who's never coached football at any level to suddenly coach an NFL team.
Right.
Are you?
She did my my college commencement speech.
Mm-hmm.
That's valid.
That's if you want to connect the dots, there you go.
That's the only time I met her.
She's coached. You could say then she has coached an NFL player before. It was before you were an NFL player.
I just got back from mini camp and I was on crutches. I had a broken foot, so I was just trying to get out of there safe.
Oh, so technically you were an NFL player at that time.
I was an NFL player already.
Even better.
Yeah, the draft was in April and my graduation was in May.
There you go. Oh, it's craziness. All right. I want to go from a bad situation
That's not a bad Cleveland is getting better. That's not a bad situation.
Okay. One questionably run organization. Can I say that?
No.
Is that wrong?
No.
Questionably run organization.
A rebuilding situation. Organization.
That's being a little more kind. I mean, rebuilding, fine.
They are rebuilding. They just got there.
John Dorsey just got there.
Dorsey and the crew just arrived.
Jimmy Haslam's been there for a while.
Yeah, and they're still figuring it out between them.
Yes, they are. And God bless them. For all those who may be new to this podcast, Will Blackmon, and you'll discover this as I am discovering it through the course of doing this podcast with him, is one of the nicest people that I have ever met.
Nice?
He is. Yes, you are incredibly, your level of empathy and understanding is, I don't know too many people who have it as consistently as you do.
I see all sides.
Yes.
And then I try to make sense of it.
Yeah, no, it's an incredibly mature, thoughtful, it's a good way to be. Will, I say none of this with any malice or criticism whatsoever.
Well, it's cool. And it's funny because my wife, Shauna, she's the exact same way. I feel like we can see the good in whoever. We have a lot of friends so we got some riffraff friends, but we know like they're good people in general. They are. Right. And
you see the good in them. You see their redeeming values.
Of course.
See, here's the thing.
I'll give you can I give you an example really quick?
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect example. I have my cousin, Corey. He pretty much grew up in my house, immediate cousin, first cousin. And he burned a lot of bridges in our family where no one wanted to help him. No one wanted to talk to him. He lost a lot of jobs. I mean, he burned every bridge you can think of. Even when he lived with my father, someone broke into my father's house. So, I mean, just everyone wrote him off. He called me out of the blue last year. And I didn't recognize the number, but it was a Rhode Island number. 401 is the area code. And I answered it. And it was him. And for some reason, I don't know why, I never answered a number I don't recognize. And he was homeless on the street. And he even called his mother, who is in New York, and she wouldn't let him come over and stay there, which is crazy. I mean, that's your own mother. I mean, that's at the end of the day, I don't care what my son does. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to give you money, but I'll try my best to give you like resources. So it's been this constant battle for him of, he kept getting fired job after job. I got him a bus ticket back to Rhode Island because I have resources in Rhode Island. He was in New York at the time. And, people just never understood it. Got into a fight with my sister, got in a fight with all kinds of people. But I knew deep down inside, like, he's a good kid. He really is a good kid who's trying to get better. But there's something that happened in his life that made him how he was. Grew up without his father. I mean, there's way more to it. But today he gave me a call and he said, hey, man, he moved in with my brother's uncle. We have different fathers. And the guy moved out, gave the lease to my cousin, and the landlord actually lowered his rent because he was, he honored and paid on time. And he was able to take over the lease. He was able to move his daughter and his girlfriend into the place. He has a job at a Toyota factory making parts, doing really well, got a car. So within this entire year, he's been like grinding and finally got himself to a point where he's like, I saw what you were talking about, Will. And he called me to let me know, like, I finally saw what you were talking about. And people saw the fact that I was helping him and not, shutting him out. And so more people were like, okay, like looking like, Corey is a good kid. That's his name, Corey. He's not this kid who just messes up and doesn't care about anybody, doesn't check in on anybody. And so now he calls a check in on me, which is something he's never done his entire life.
That's a great story.
You can recover. Yeah. Browns.
Jimmy, give Will a call. He'll connect you with.
Well, listen, I almost got a recommendation to be the director of player development.
And?
Not moving to Ohio.
Because
I live in Orange County, California.
I just needed to hear you say it. I grew up in Cincinnati. I believe that Cincinnati is a great place to be from. It's a great place to grow up. It can be a great place to settle down. It should be a law that everybody has to leave for at least, I used to say 3 years. I feel like it's maybe 5 years now.
That's my Rhode Island rule. You have to leave. You have to see other places.
Because there's too many people that never do, and they think that that's the world.
What high school did you go to?
I went to Walnut Hills High School.
Walnut Hills.
It's a college.
You guys good at soccer?
It's a public college prep. Yes, I was.
No, it was just school. It was just
the school was good. School was good too. Yes.
I had a lot of friends went to Elder and St. X.
I almost went to St. X. I almost transferred to St. X. Luke Kuechly's dad was a goalkeeper that I played against. And his dad was very much a football-like goalkeeper. But I scored on him every time we played. That's for you, Tom. Anyway.
And I'll pass on Skylight Chili. No, thank you. Anyway, go ahead.
We'll get back to Skyline Chili at some point. We'll talk about that. You're not passing on Grader's ice cream. I know that.
I'm passing on the Bengals.
Really, no doubt. Yeah, they got exposed today. Again, but that's not the dysfunctional organization or the rebuilding organization, however you want to describe it. That's not the one I want to go to next. It's obviously, you mentioned them, the Oakland Raiders, and we saw a back and forth between Jon Gruden and Derek Carr, and this is a lost season, obviously. The question is, going forward, what are they going, or rather, what is Jon going to take going forward? And I have some real questions now, and these questions have come up before, and they put them aside. I just wonder, from your experience, when you see everything that's going on between Jon Gruden and Derek Carr, we had a tiff on the sideline today. At what point does this become irreparable, or at what point do you look at this and say, yeah, that's not his quarterback? I don't know that that's now. I think a lot of people are jumping to that conclusion now. I wonder where you are.
I still think it's his quarterback. I mean, I don't know what really happened, why the argument went on. They still got the victory.
Win is a win.
But it's once again, it's an organization trying to figure it out. And I know, like, they're lighting up Jon Gruden for all the decisions he's making, but he signed a long-term deal to truly rip out the insides and start over. And everyone's like, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" Well, he's trying to make it the way he wants to make it. I always say, when a new head coach and GM, take over, and obviously he has personnel say based on what they're doing. It's kind of like there's like a 4-year plan. You have 3 to 4 years to figure out what you want to do.
Right.
I look at it when I was in Green Bay and Mike McCarthy took over my rookie year. He drafted me. That's when he signed Charles Woodson. And this was 2006. And then 2007, we lost an NFC championship. Moved on from Favre in 2008. New quarterback Aaron Rodgers, and kept bringing in more pieces. 2009. Then finally, 2010, they figured it out. They ended up coming through, and that's when they won their Super Bowl. It's the 4-year plan. It was the same way when I was in Jacksonville. People were just like crazy, up in arms, like, what is going on here? We're not good. This is 2013. And Dave Caldwell just got there. Gus Bradley just got there. And yeah, we struggled that year. I mean, it wasn't until 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 is when they finally got good. They went 15-1 in 2011, the year we beat them. Thank you very much, the New York Giants.
Right.
But yeah, so once again, it just takes time. The 4-year plan.
Right. I get that. I understand that.
Let it be year 4, and he's doing stuff that the Giants did. Jerry Reese, he just went and just spent a boatload of money trying to bring in guys. I don't know, maybe trying to save his job, or trying to do whatever. He brought in, Vernon, paid him a bunch of money. Brought in Janoris Jenkins, paid him a bunch of money. Paid everybody. And it didn't work out.
I would feel better about all of that if Gruden had let us know that was the plan, or that if I felt that was the plan from the very beginning, because it wasn't an indication of, we're not going forward with Khalil Mack. We're going to flip that into draft picks because we want to tear this thing down and start over. It was, well, we couldn't make a deal. So now we have draft picks, and then they start losing, and now we're going to move Amari Cooper. It feels as if they have done this as a result of not coming out of the gate the way they wanted to, not that this was the master plan all along. And I would feel better about that. Gruden knows where he's going to take this, because here's the question. It's a matter of faith that you're going to tear it down, and then you're going to have the capability of rebuilding it. Well, that's, for anybody who knows the history of Jon Gruden. Jon Gruden did win a Super Bowl in Tampa Bay, but he didn't build that team.
No, he walked into a turnkey house.
Exactly. And was he building something, and did they have success when he was with the Raiders? Absolutely. But it was a model of older guys.
Right.
And there is that question of, okay, so you've looked at this and said, I'm going to remake it, all well and good. I'd feel better if I felt like you had that idea in mind from the very start. And then it's a matter of, okay, Jon's never done this before to this level of success that Raiders fans expect. Is he capable of doing that? And so I look at all of the progress that they've made over the last couple of years, and I credit that to Reggie McKenzie. he's not very good in front of the camera. He's not very good in front of the microphone. But when it comes to selecting talent and putting it together, I think he's done an admirable job considering where the Raiders were.
Right.
Now I'm not sure who's in charge, and I'm really not sure that if McKenzie was, that he would have torn this thing down the way that Jon has. Because basically, let's face it, Jon is tearing down and throwing out a lot of pieces that Reggie put in place.
He did. That's why I can just imagine just Reggie just taking his notes and just throwing them in the air. If no one's going to listen to me, like he had everything. Reggie had the formula. You take over a team, you get your franchise quarterback, which they did. You get your elite pass rusher, which they did, who is unbelievable. And he was on his way, then all of a sudden he comes in. And it's funny because when I worked out for Reggie McKenzie a couple of years ago, he's like, you know what? We want to go with younger corners. We want to go younger. We want to build this team, from the bottom up and do what we need to do. And cool. I respected that. And then Jon comes in and you see 35, 30, 32, bringing these older guys in, which is crazy. And I know that wasn't Reggie, because Reggie would not do that. Because if you look at Green Bay, they're bringing in younger guys. You look at the Browns, Dorsey's bringing in younger guys. That's what he did in Kansas City too. He brought in younger guys. John Snyder's bringing in younger guys, building. And I'm naming all these guys that were under Ron Wolf.
Yeah. All right. One of the other things I wanted to get to, we've talked about this before, and I thought today was a microcosm, a perfect example of at least what I've brought up. And that goes back to the Minnesota Vikings kicking Case Keenum to the curb, signing Kirk Cousins for $29 million a year, guaranteed. And is he going to be the guy that's going to take you that last step, the step that they weren't able to take last year? They lose in the Sunday night game, and
he did it to you again.
He did it to himself, and he did it to the Vikings once again. Mitchell Trubisky and the Chicago Bears outdid them. Now, the final score, I don't think, was indicative of how dominant the Bears were, 25-20. Kirk Cousins I think he finished with 2 TDs, 2 interceptions. I don't know what the final yardage was, but he got a lot of that when they were in.
Yeah, he had 260, but he threw the ball 46 times.
Yes.
And that's only 5 yards a pop.
And that was a lot of that came on when the Bears were in prevent defense in the last 5-6 minutes of the game.
2-minute drill.
Exactly. So with all that said, in the meanwhile, I'm watching Case Keenum, and what's he doing? He's driving them for a game-winning field goal and knocking off the Chargers. And I just keep looking at it and thinking, and look, obviously hindsight is 20/20, but I've said from the beginning, I'm just not convinced that Cousins was worth the investment that they made. However, I always defer to my colleague, Will Blackmon, when it comes to these things, in case I'm missing something, or because your ability to stand in the other person's shoes, I lean on that. So what is it, if you are Kirk Cousins and you're in those shoes, that I'm not giving you fair consideration for?
This one, I'm stumped. Because what I learned in the NFL is, you're like, man, this guy did this, this guy did that. It's like, okay, so he deserves X amount of dollars. But what I learned is guys get paid for what they're going to do, not for what they have done. So I think they went with upside.
Well, I would qualify that. I would take it another step. I think they pay them for what they think they can do for them.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Which is, there's a distinction in there, because it's like, I don't know if the Vikings expected Kirk Cousins to be the best quarterback in the NFL just because they were paying him as if he was the best quarterback in the NFL.
I'm 100% sure they didn't think that he was going to be, the best quarterback, the most efficient quarterback. I'm positive.
But I'm sure what they were thinking is, he can be the quarterback that gets us to the Super Bowl. And just had my doubts because of his ability to make those plays. He missed Stephon Diggs. See, here's the thing. He makes a lot of really good plays.
When it doesn't matter. And
he does make mistakes, and he can't make the big play that compensates for that. Like, look, Rodgers throws interceptions. Rodgers throws bad passes now and then. Tom Brady, same thing. but they have that ability to make up for it because they can go above and beyond. Kirk doesn't have that. And so he has to be, in some ways, within his game, he has to be perfect. And when he's not, you're going the other way because he can't make up for it. And that's what I saw in a microcosm. That's what I saw tonight against the Chicago Bears.
Well, no, it's true. No, it's very true because there are some times where, like in practice, if a play was perfect and the dude was wide open, he's probably looking for that exact same play in the game. And if there was one, if there's one kind of criticism that I would say before now, when I was there in 15 and 16, is once the play broke down, that was it.
Yeah.
It's funny because the defense and the offense, we used to always argue in practice. This is on any team where if we knock the ball down, they're like, oh, he's not going to be there. He's not going to be there. That's how the offense would yell at us. He's not going to be in that playing the coverage like that. Well, how do you know?
Right.
Just because you saw it on film, he's not going to line up like that. Now, there are times where it may happen. I'm sure it does. When we played the Packers, I think it was Sunday night, there was this deep post pass that they completed in practice, and it transferred over right into the game, a huge pass to Jameson Crowder. So there are times, but I think you're right in that regards where he looks for that, where it has to be perfect. Everything has to play out how it did in practice. Very few things happen off script. So I think if you really look at the two quarterbacks, like
there's not a whole lot of difference between them.
There's not a whole lot of difference. I probably like Case Keenum's attitude better.
How so?
I like Case Keenum's attitude in terms of just going for it. I think he has that mindset where he's gonna really truly go for it. And I love how he took over a Minnesota team for 1 year and won everybody over, and just not only led the team but just led the city. And that's why I was shocked that they didn't bring him back because he had that efficacy that people look for. The ability to lift everybody else, the ability to affect everybody. So with Kirk, I just see a quarterback, who shows up at work and does his job, and that's that.
I don't know what the level of our listener is yet. We have demographics, but we don't have the demographics to that degree. But yes, Will Blackmon just used the word efficacy, and I personally am impressed. I hope that all of our listeners. That was really good. I had to point that out. I'm guarantee you there's people listening and they go, wait, what was that? What word did he use? And I wish you could see the expression on Will's face. He's like, please don't stop patronizing me. I'm smart. Okay. I'm smart.
No, I don't even act like,
I know you don't. That's look, that's the beauty of it.
I'm just myself, man.
Will, that's the beauty of it. You used it naturally. You have to understand, I'm an English major. I'm a writer.
So am I.
So then when I see someone else, and I didn't know you were a writer. I didn't know you were an English major. When I see someone who is of the same feather, it's like, oh, they use words. It just makes exactly. It makes me feel good because there's not too much of that around.
I don't use a high vocabulary, but that was the perfect area.
It was. You're making me feel bad that I complimented you, like I'm patronizing you.
Don't feel bad. No, I just don't.
All right, you know who? Yeah, you know what? Else. You know what? Somebody who feels really bad, and I was struck as he was carted off that he didn't look like he was in more pain, which raises a question for me: how quickly do they give you drugs when you have an injury, like Alex Smith? For anybody who didn't see it, broke his leg just above the ankle, both the tibia and the fibula. Thank God they didn't replay it over and over, but if you watch it closely, as I couldn't help watching it and replaying it, when he goes to get up, his leg just flops forward above the ankle in a way that legs are not supposed to, and it gave me the shivers. But he was on the cart and he's going off, and I'm thinking he has to be in. He doesn't look like he's in pain. And he should be. I can only imagine what that feels like.
Oh, because he was in complete shock.
Yeah.
When you have a gruesome injury like that, you are just in shock. You lay down there, and he couldn't even scream or yell. He was just in complete shock.
The worst thing that you've seen being on the field, the worst experience you've had, just whether it was personally or just seeing something like that happen.
Mine was personal. It was 2009 in Minnesota. I'm in my contract year, and I just have to finish the season healthy, and I'll get a nice nice paycheck from somebody in the off season. And I was just returning a regular punt like I always done the past, 4 years. And I just made a jump cut. And as soon as I did that, I just felt everything in my knee go out, everything. And I just remember laying on the turf and I was like, wow, there's no way that this just happened, that my knee just went out, everything. And I'm holding my knee. It's like funny now that I think about it because we always joke about, a guy tore his ACL when he just throws the football and goes to the ground. Because I did. Who cares about the football? My knee hurt. So at my first thought, I was like, okay, no way this happened. And then I was like, when trainers came over, they were like, hey, what's going on? I said, text my wife. Just let her, just text. 'Cause I know she's watching and that's obviously, you never want to see that. So I said, text her, what's going on? Like, I'm cool. But that was the most horrific thing because I was like, man, this is gonna change my career completely. And it did, because ever since I did that, every single team looked at me differently. They said he had an ACL, so let's give him a 1-year deal and see what happens. Let's give him a 1 year. So I signed 1-year deals, 1 or 2 year deals for the rest of my career since 2009. Never got the max or whatever the cool offseason check that the second contract that most people look for. Yeah. And it was crazy. It was such a grind just to try to get that back. And it's funny because if you talk to most world players, they actually prefer a concussion over an ACL. They're like, hey, whatever it is, do not touch my knees. So for me, that was really personal. It changed everything.
I want to add pain to this, but like, what kind of contract were you looking at in 2009 based on what guys comparably were getting?
I think probably it would be like a 4-year, like 20 plus, something like that, But yeah, it wasn't just my ACL. It was ACL. It was a dislocation. It was lateral meniscus. Like I did all kinds of stuff to it. And to add insult to injury, when I did the surgery, they said if you do a patella tendon graft, that's the strong. No, they said if you do a cadaver, you get back faster. And I'm thinking like, I need to get back now. So they did a cadaver, the doctor in Green Bay. And when he did that, what happened was after the surgery, I'm like, man, I was rehabbing it and my knee still felt pretty loose. And I'm like, man, I just can't run on it. And it wasn't healing. So long story short, I got cut, went to the Giants. Giants had my physical and they were like, man, they failed my physical because they say my knee wasn't stable. Did an MRI, X-ray and say, hey, your ACL, first of all, you don't do a cadaver for an ACL. You do a patella tendon graft because a cadaver is somebody else's and your body could reject it. And then a patella tendon graft is stronger because you actually take a piece from your kneecap and you fuse it in there. And it was put in wrong. So I had to do the whole thing all over again. So they actually, Giants, so when I signed with I actually signed with them. They let me work out. For some reason, I felt good that day. David Gettleman at the time was there. He worked me out and nicest dude I ever met, man. He's just incredible. Gave me a hug every time I saw him that season. So they ended up signing me anyway, but I signed a waiver saying that whatever happens, they're not responsible for it. So I said, I'll take that. So when the season was over, I met with the trainers and they actually ripped up the waiver. They said, hey, you know what? We feel bad because your knee is really messed up. It got to the point where I couldn't even run. So they put me in IR because I couldn't run. I know, it's crazy. So they said, you know what? We're going to rip up the waiver. We don't care about that. We want you to get healthy. So they said, pick any doctor in the country, any rehab facility, and we'll pay for it the whole offseason. This is what the Giants did. Yeah. And I wasn't even part of the team. My contract expired. So sure enough, I got surgery, sent them the bill, took care of it. Every time I had rehab, I sent them the bill, they took care of it.
Why wasn't this happening with the Packers? Like, why wasn't that doctor, why weren't the Packers liable for what seems to be like malfeasance or malpractice rather?
Well, I didn't know at the time. So I didn't know about taking action or any of those things. I was like, all right, my knee is not coming back. My knee's not healing. So at this point, I was like, man, I can't see myself being how I was ever again.
What, didn't your agent jump in and advise you or?
Oh, here's what's crazy. My agent, his name is Paul Lawrence with Maximum Sports, and he had a heart attack playing basketball at 44 years old. And yeah, it's crazy and passed away.
In the midst of this?
No, that off season. Yeah. So going into the next off season, because we didn't know all these things really, and I was so young, man, and so I had no idea really the grand scheme of things. And while this is going on, Shauna, she's 7 months pregnant. Like it was a crazy time, man. So,
man,
yeah, I don't know, man. So yeah, that was my point where that was devastating for me to have the surgery and then to have to do it again and start from ground zero. And then the Giants actually brought me back that year. No, so when I got cut with my first surgery that didn't go well, that's the year the Packers won the Super Bowl.
Oh,
so not only am I laying there with a jacked up knee, but I'm watching Green Bay go win the Super Bowl.
Oh, wow.
So the next year when I had my second surgery, the Giants actually brought me back, and that's when I won the Super Bowl with the Giants.
What a story! What a roller coaster.
So I worked my ass off, man, to get to a point where I can be an athlete again. So that's why it's cool I ran a 4.41 at the combine, and then to have 3 surgeries just so I can bend my knee, to have all these surgeries and then be able to run a 4.4 again, be able to jump 41 inches again, run a 4.3 for some people. I worked out for the Browns this past offseason. They were like, dude, you just beat all your combine times. I was like, I know, So I went to a sports science lab. My trainer was Gavin McMillan, and he's just a wizard, man. Saved my life. And the Giants saved my life.
You ever thought about taking up another sport since your athleticism is back to the level that it is?
No, it's not. I tried to play basketball, and arthritis kicked in.
I saw that. You said ibuprofen or Toradol. Okay, I've taken the one. I haven't taken the other.
You don't want to take Toradol. You don't want to take that.
I don't want to take it.
No, that's a cure-all.
Oh, really?
You won't feel anything.
And that would be bad because
when it wears off, you're gonna have a lot of damage.
Oh, okay. So you would take it beforehand.
It doesn't strengthen you. It's so you don't feel anything.
It just masks everything
completely.
Got it. All right. We will end on that. In our next podcast, we're going to go over.
Let's talk about this Chiefs-Rams game that's going down tomorrow.
Exactly. We're going to talk about that. And one of the things that I do want to get from you is that obviously moving the game from Mexico City, but they've changed out 5 of the officials in the officiating crew. And I wonder how notable that was for you in big games in terms of who was officiating and if there were particular officials that you got to know either liked or didn't like. We're going to save all that for the next podcast, along with just breaking down what is the game of the year now between the Chiefs and the Rams. All right, that's it for today's episode of Bucher and Blackmon. Don't forget, you can follow Will on Twitter at Will Blackmon and me at Ric Bucher. You can follow the show on Twitter and Instagram at Bucher Friends. Drop us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Screenshot the review and tweet it to us at Bucher Friends, and you'll be entered for a chance to win some swag. And I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners. We've only been doing this for a couple weeks, but the audience continues to grow by leaps and bounds. We appreciate that. We appreciate you for listening. We love doing this, and we're going to continue doing it. And it seems as if you guys feel the same way. So with that, thank you. And Will and I will be back tomorrow.